Good morning, everybody. Today is the 30th of May, and we're going to move forward with our next episodes of the Lynette Hooker case. We're going to jump right into it. Between May 16th and May 22nd, the investigation shifted firmly onto U.S. soil as Soulmate remained secured in Fort Pierce, Florida. After its arrival on May 15th, authorities maintained control of the vessel, restricting access and treating it as an active part of an ongoing investigation. The boat's condition, layout, and any remaining physical details were now subject to examination by the U.S. agencies. During this period, coordination between the Bahamian authorities and the United States investigators continued. The transfer of information, statements, and documentation helped establish a clearer picture of the timeline leading up to Lynette's disappearance. The inconsistencies identified earlier in the month remained unsolved, and the focus stayed on verifying the sequence of events rather than expanding the search. No major public updates were released during this time frame, but the investigative posture had changed. The vessel was no longer in transfer, it was no longer in foreign custody, it was now stationary, accessible, and under the jurisdiction of agencies with border resources. This shift marked the beginning of a more detailed forensic and procedural review of the case. The days that followed Soulmate's arrival in Florida carried a quiet intensity. For Lynette's family, the boat's presence on U.S. soil felt like a step closer to answers, even though those answers were still so far out of reach. Seeing Soulmate taped off and treated as evidence was a stark reminder of the gravity of the situation. The boat had once been a part of a vacation, was now the center of an investigation that stretched across borders. For the family, these days were filled with waiting for updates, waiting for clarity, waiting for something that could explain possibly what happened to Lynette. The stillness of this period was heavy, but it carried a sense of direction. The case was no longer drifting. It had arrived physically and procedurally and was at its next stage. On May 23rd through the end of the month, the investigation remained centered on the Soulmate as it sat secured in Fort Pierce. The authorities continued to control the vessel, restricting access and communicating back and forth with Bahamian authorities. By the end of May, the case had fully transitioned into a U.S. phase. The vessel was stationary, accessible, and again, under the jurisdiction of the United States with border resources. The groundwork was being laid for the next steps, even though those steps had not yet been made public. The waiting was still very difficult for the family, as they were wondering, is this going to lead us any further in the investigation, or is this just going to be a halting point once again? On May 25th, there was no new publicly confirmed developments in the investigation. Excuse me. The Soulmate remains in Fort Pierce, Florida, under the control of the United States Authority. No additional statements, findings, or procedural updates have been released by the Bahamian or U.S. agencies at this time. However, that is not to state that there may not be new evidence coming forward very soon.